All right, welcome. This is the Tuesday, January 3rd, regular meeting of the North Shore Board of Fire Commissioners. And our first order of business will be to call roll. Amy?
Commissioner Admin,
Present.
Commissioner Pratt,
Present.
Commissioner Byers,
Present.
Commissioner Webster,
Here.
Commissioner Woolen, here, Chief Allen,
Here.
Legal Counsel Matt Paxton,
Here.
and then Board Secretary.
Right, thank you, Amy. Item number 2, public comments.
I did not receive any advance requests for public comment, but if anyone would like to, please raise your hand.
Any members of the public wish to comment?
No, thank you. Thanks, though.
All right, excellent. We'll move on. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Chair would accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Agenda.
Agenda, sorry.
Yes. Thank
I'll
you.
second the agenda.
Thank
All right, perfect. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. And aye, it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, very exciting. First order of business is the election of new board officers. So the chair would accept nominations for the position of chair for the year of 2023.
So I've never been part of this new thing. I guess we did it last year, but it doesn't need to be new people, right? You can keep the same people, or does it need to be new people? How does that work?
You can keep the same people. I think that it's healthy to have some turnover. I'm excited to step down and have someone else
I was just giving you a hard
take the helm. And in that vein, Commissioner Admin. I would second that nomination.
Even though I don't know what I'm doing.
A couple of former board chairs. Oh, yeah. A few of them.
We all started that way. All right. Any other nominations for the position of board chair? Okay, discussion on position, or for discussion on the nomination of Commissioner Woolen for board chair.
They're laughing and that's not funny.
You
No.
accept the nomination.
I feel like I'm pretty new still. But as long as you guys are patient with me fumbling through things, okay.
I think that one, it's healthy for us to have some turnover and have some new leadership. I think Commissioner Woolen, that you've shown a tremendous amount of interest and enthusiasm for the position of commissioner. And I think that even given your inexperience, you'll do a fantastic job.
And I would be happy, and I'm sure Rick would be happy, Josh would be happy to offer you our advice from our prior experiences in that position about, what makes it a successful position.
Okay.
And it's, our business has really shrunk down from what it used to be, so.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll now vote. All in favor of Commissioner Woolen as our new chair, please say aye.
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 All right, excellent, it's unanimous. Pass it over. Chairperson Woolen.
It takes place effective immediately.
Can I vote?
Well, yeah. You did it. So do we have any nomination for the vice chair?
I would like to nominate Commissioner Byers for vice chair.
I will second that. I'll third it. You good?
Don't really, yeah.
You fill in and then you also get some experience with it too.
Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Frank, or Commissioner Pratt.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I feel that Commissioner Byers will do a wonderful job. Even given the inexperience, it's a great opportunity to kind of be behind the scenes a little bit. Communication with the chief, communication with the chairperson, opportunity to chair in a meeting occasionally. So kind of puts you in line and brings you up to speed for being the chairperson in the future. Okay.
It's good experience.
Okay, are we ready to take a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Okay, for discussion on possible action items, discussion on policy 1450. Commissioner meeting minutes.
I think Commissioner Admin has this one.
So I have a question. So we distributed a copy of the existing policy. And I think it was after our last meeting where we had the AV capture and so on. So are we willing to amend the policy to make a reference to AV capture? Is that the sense that you guys had, or what was there?
The idea is to amend the policy so that our policy reflects our practice. And our practice is to record and upload all of our meetings to AV capture. And our policy currently as written doesn't say that the video will be, in particular, will be uploaded.
So question, the one we post online, is that the updated one or this is the current?
I believe the one that was distributed is our current.
So we would want to find which line we want to change and get the language in there.
Yeah, I think it probably makes sense rather than spending time here today, kind of workshopping this. It makes sense to have a committee sit down, come up with revisions to the policy, and then present it at our next meeting in February. Does that seem reasonable?
I would volunteer to be on that committee.
Is it a one-person committee or? do we want-
Probably Eric, if he would join me on that.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
And then, so, okay, and we'll try to meet. We'll look at schedules after the meeting tonight.
Sure.
Okay, and we have no board resolution. So we're on to the consent agenda.
Make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Commissioner compensation.
Well, that's all one. That's part of the
Oh,
consent.
it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
All we have to do is vote on the consent agenda and it approves all those items.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, then,
Okay, so on to reports.
excuse me, for one, you want to make a statement that it's passed unanimously.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
Okay, the consent agenda has been passed unanimously.
Great.
Reports. The fire chief report.
So I emailed it to you all. We were having a copy, that's why I was late. I was trying to get it copied so I could give you copies. And we had a little meltdown. Not as bad as Southwest Airlines, but and so I don't have it in front of me, but I can.
I have it in front of me too.
Okay, so is there any questions on it? I will say that you'll see a couple of, one theme in there, there wasn't a lot of meetings because I was off last week, holidays and all that. But I'm attending multiple meetings regarding possible capacity issues. And working with our state chiefs association try and support some legislation to, affect some long-term changes. I'm also pushing for some short-term fixes. Working with Dr. Ray and county leadership to, it's a number of things, but one of them is to have an EMT when they're at the overload capacity, to sit and manage multiple patients in the hallway, called wall time. And be able to relieve some of the pressure off of nursing staff to do so and get our ACARs back in service and back in district. It's been a bit of a battle for multiple reasons. But the latest is that I'm going to work offline with Michelle Ford, Director of King County and EMS, and Dr. Ray to try and come up with some funding. I'm asking Michelle to come up with funding that EMS levy to pay for an EMT. Wouldn't necessarily be a shoreline employee, it could be multiple. And my suggestion was for zone 1, it's to Northwest Evergreen and Silver Lake. And, and have some criteria as to when to trigger an EMT to go there and do it, or be on call, or trying to figure some of that out. One of the other big things that we're trying to work on is if there's an application or a staff position to manage hospital levels and throughout the entire county, and then be able to relay that immediately out to crews and say, avoid this hospital, go to this hospital, or just report out on wait times, and I was kidding, you wouldn't say go to this hospital or avoid this hospital, but you could say wait times, and then let the patient decide on if they really want to go to a hospital that has a longer wait time and things like that. And then another piece is to try and hopefully not take patients to the ER and to allow some more discretionary transport to clinics from doctors' offices and things of that nature. And one of the other pushes I've been made is allowing hospitals to divert, and that's a law issue. There's some legal implications there. But because once we're on site, in the parking lot, theoretically we're not supposed to leave the hospital. We are supposed to lock in there, and that can be a real problem. So we need to know prior to being on site whether or not they're, what their wait times are, and whether or not they want to divert. So just want to let you know, continue to work on this a bit, and that's why you're seeing multiple meetings. I sit on a committee representing the King County Fire Chiefs on this countywide, well, some other countywide leadership, but also at the state level with the Hospitals Association, Nursing Associations, and so forth, pushing for legislation. The legislation, though, that's a long term. That's going to take quite a while to fix. And there's nothing yet. There's not a silver bullet out there yet. But the talk is trying to get funding for helping train nurses, increase Medicare, Medicaid payments, things of that nature. So more to come. I just want to let you know
So
there's.
you're not sure yet if you're looking at an on-duty person, or if that would be somebody that would be called in specifically?
That's a good question. I would not want to take away from our on-duty crews.
Yeah.
So if there was somebody on day shift or something like that, that we could set, because you're all of a sudden, I'll just take Northwest. Northwest hits that threshold, whatever it is. And they say, okay, we need somebody to help come in and manage the patients that are in the hallway. It can't take 2 hours to get that person there. It has to be a fairly quick turnaround. So we either have somebody on call or a day shifter, or maybe it is even an on-duty person, and we immediately sign a day shifter or call in an overtime or something to backfill, or we haven't figured that part out quite yet. Those are some of the things that we need to iron out. But we're trying to look at ways, and that doesn't help the hospital capacity issue. And I've been looking at it like, I want to help them fix the hospital capacity issue. But right now, there's short-term things that we can do to relieve pressure off of our crews.
Yeah.
And having an ACAR with two personnel and an ACAR sitting there managing a patient, and another ACAR managing a patient, and there's 4 or 5 of these ACARs there with 10 people managing 5 patients. Well, you put an EMT there and manage 5 patients there in an area. As they're waiting for beds to open up in the ER. So that's the vision. And so we'll see what happens.
Is this vision being driven by like the chiefs, or I guess I just see it seems like a pretty interesting issue, because in a way, the issue of wait times is really, the hospital management.
Yeah.
Capacity issue, so, we would be incurring a cost to deal with the problem that's being created by the hospital. I know it would help us also, but then also I wonder about just the legality of transfer of care, who's managing those patients, who's liable for that during that hallway time.
So this was me pushing this idea. And originally I was looking for a medic to be able to just better level training, and awareness and so forth. I didn't feel like it needed to be a medic, but I felt like to address if there was any friction about the level of certification of care that was being given, and so forth. And they beat it up a bit and came back and said, EMT would be okay with this under, certain, because we're in a crisis under some emergency declaration kind of powers, and so that's kind of when we switched to the EMT. I think it could be either. But one of the things that I identified was like, wait, this would be a regional asset. It wouldn't be just doing shoreline aid cars. It'd be doing, shoreline and Bothell and Kirkland and Redmond, whatever. And it needs to be paid for from some regional fund or the hospital itself. The pushback we got from the hospital, because I introduced this quite a while, this has been the works for a bit. Was why would we spend the money on an EMT when I need to spend the money on a nurse to create more beds? And so that was the pushback. And I was like, well, you can't hire enough nurses. There aren't any nurses there. So give us the money to help relieve this piece of it. And so what it's evolved into is looking at funding from the EMS levy, which is regional, and not incurring any cost by any individual department. And it wouldn't be just shoreline. Like I said, it'd be anybody that was sending an EMT, and there's other hospitals in our system that would need to be addressed too. And I was focused on zone 1, because apparently zone 3, South County, is doing some creative things kind of along these lines too, from what I've gathered, to try and help minimize, and they're being a little bit more effective than we are in limiting the wall times. So more to come on this. Obviously, there's still more questions that need to be addressed, but I'm just looking at some short-term things that we don't need legislation to be passed to make an impact on our business. It's not going to help the hospitals. It doesn't really, unless we do some of these other things too about triaging the hospital load capacity or sending more people to clinics or whatever, things like that. Decreasing the supply in will help us with the output as well. So those are some of the things that we're working on.
So is there opportunity for you to meet with people in zone 3 to kind of figure out what they're doing and what's working?
Dr. Ray is working, with them as well. So he's been kind of my conduit of information on that. Dr. Ray, Dr. Sayer, and Michelle have all been kind of in tune with that. I certainly, if this progresses and I still end up with more resistance to it, I may reach out to them and find out, what they're doing, because maybe there's a different way to accomplish what we're looking for.
Right.
So, so I'm hoping that we can, because I'm sure some of you have seen the stories, as bad as it is here, it's not nearly as bad as what it is in England. They've identified that there are many, tons of people that have actually literally died because of the overload capacity situation, with 6.5 hour waits, with an 8-car ambulance not getting there for an hour and a half to when you call 999, I think, over there. This is as bad as it is here. It's bad across the country. It's bad across the world. It's a worldwide nursing shortage kind of situation. So, and thankfully, it's not that bad here. But we are trying to get in front of this to try and do what we can. So we'll see, and then we'll see what happens with the legislation too. That's been proposed.
I have another question on how's the COVID situation currently?
It's still out there.
Same rules for you guys?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know if we have anybody in quarantine. I was gone last week, so I'm still trying to catch up. I don't know if we have anybody in quarantine or anything. I don't think we do. But it's still out there. It's just, right now it's flu. It's a triple. it's flu, RSV and COVID, that's impacting. And again, thankfully, it's not, knock on wood again, we're not encountering huge wait times at wall times and all that. But they have been slowly increasing as the flu season is hitting us and RSV and all that stuff. Yeah, it's still there.
We've been doing something or similar down in Thurston County where it's funded through Thurston County Medical. And so they will pay for 2 EMTs to sit in the breezeway and they have 4 beds.
Oh,
So
okay.
they'll manage 4 patients in there. And it does help with the BLS turnover time, because you're getting the privates back out of service faster, which alleviates, some of the times that we're sitting waiting on seem to get an ambulance to us.
Right.
But it does feel weird to have the county paying and funding for this. Seems like it's, lifting a little bit off the shoulders of the hospital, but like you said, it really doesn't do too much to the hospital, but it does kind of spin up part-time through it. So yeah, there's a kind of one.
Well, one of the other things was that, and it only works in certain hospitals, and this was thrown out as well, when we were having the discussion, was instead of putting the, wheeling them in on the gurney or whatever, and then putting them in the hallway, is that unless they need to be on the backboard or something like that, grab a wheelchair, put them in a wheelchair, put them in triage. Because it's basically the same thing, and then force the hospital triage nurse to be triaging all of the people that are there. And that's an option in some hospitals. Physically, that's an option, but some hospitals that doesn't work. Just like putting a bunch of people in a hallway isn't going to work in some hospitals too. So, but then, thank you for sharing that though, because I can use that as an example. And my whole point to them is like, everybody keeps calling it a crisis. Well, treat it like a crisis then. Give us the power, give us the emergency funding or whatever. And that's why I've been asking Michelle to get it out of the EMS levy. Because yeah, it is kind of counterintuitive, but EMS levy is regional. That's regional money, to help our entire system. It's not just ALS, it's not just BLS, it's not just MIH, it's supposed to be everything. So either that or go to the county and get emergency funding, DOH or whatever. So
And is there any outreach happening to get more new nurses through the system?
yes, there's, and that is, again, I don't have, and when I do, I'll let you guys know. I don't have the silver bullet legislation that says, okay, it's Bill 1321. You have to make that up. So,
Right.
It's not that, but what we're hearing is that there's going to be legislation introduced to help with nursing, because part of the issue is that even if we had the money, we don't have the logistical process to get more, quickly at least, more nurses trained up and through the system. So we have to, also open up and be supporting financially and logistically with the training of nurses to replace the supply that we've lost. So, I've been told that there's going to be legislation addressing that. A big one with the hospitals, we got a kind of a doom and gloom presentation from the CEO of Valley Medical down in South County, and the $20 million that they've lost huge amounts of money in revenues, and that they're in dire financial straits. Well, one of the things that's also, this is a bigger lift, of course, is looking at the Medicaid, Medicare funding, and because it hasn't been increased in 30 or 40 years or something. It's been ridiculously long. And I don't quote me on that how long.
Right.
It's been a long time. But that's really gonna be a political battle, as well. So so there's, I think at the end of the day, there will probably be 2, 3, 5 different pieces of legislation trying to address different aspects of this. One of the pieces of legislation that was introduced last year and is fearful that it'll be introduced again this year and potentially passed, is limiting the amount of patients that a nurse can oversee.
Oh.
And it's called, it's a ratio thing,
Oh,
like 5 to 1.
okay.
And so that was introduced last year, it didn't gain any strength and all that. But, here we are in a shortage and now we're saying you can see even less patients. Now's not the time, and I understand the issue, and they did, the reason behind it is a good one of not trying to overload nurses. but again, if we're in a crisis, we're in a crisis, and I'm sorry. You might get overloaded, and I don't want to burn out, and I don't want to abuse, the scheduling or whatever, but. We need to look at this, from many different, angles. And so the fear is that this could gain traction and get support and pass, which that would be a step backwards.
And is that something, because I'm planning on going to legislation day with you, is that stuff we'll hear about there? Okay.
I anticipate that this will probably be one of our top things to be talking with the legislators about. That hasn't been defined yet. But as we get closer, and once we have legislation to actually look at, we can go to Cindy and say, okay, please support Bill 1321 or House Bill or Senate, whatever it is, that's gonna help us out. So
Okay.
a big one for me is going to be, when we try and set this up, is to try and get some amendments into the PRA, the Public Records Act. Because I'm still dealing with public record, an inordinate amount of requests from one individual. So it's. I'm not optimistic that we'll get any traction on it because it seems to be introduced every year, but it's kind of ridiculous.
So he almost needs his own assistant to keep up with all the
Well,
requests.
it could be worse, again. So if it got worse, I would potentially need to hire somebody just to deal with public records.
Wow. Okay.
So.
So I had a question about something off topic. That I heard the chief of Bothell is retiring.
That is correct.
Okay,
There's public knowledge now too. I found out right before Christmas, I
okay.
think.
And so how does that impact, or does it impact anything we're doing in North Shore and Shoreline?
Doesn't impact anything directly at this time. And Bothell has not figured out what they're going to do. In fact, I had a conversation with Chief Crone earlier today, even saying, is there anything going on that I need to know about? And he goes, no, they haven't figured it, out what they're going to do, but the likelihood is that they'll be looking at some kind of regionalization. Again, who knows? So I don't want to speculate or assume anything. They will either go out and look for a new fire chief, or they will look for regionalization. The deputy chief there has also put in an intent to retire as well. So he put his in about a month ago.
Okay,
So this is before. So it's
okay. Up in the
yet to
air.
be determined. I think what he said is it's mid-May, I believe, is his actual separation date. I don't know if they'll be physically there up until that, or a lot of times you'll end up earning vacation or cashing out vacation.
Is that Croon is mid-May?
At the latest, I think that he said that if he could leave earlier, he would. But he wanted to give, and I actually respect this, he wanted to give Bothell at least, the 6 months to find a new chief. So that's 6 months. So, but I think that if they found an option to do it sooner, then he would do so. Is the impression I get. Again, I'm just telling you what I've been told by him and all that. So it's not from the city council or city manager or anything official.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Chief. I don't believe we have any commissioner reports.
I would just like to publicly say thank you to the Aid 151 crews that came to my neighbor's aid on both Christmas Eve and Christmas night. So they were just excellent care and great customer service. So really appreciative of that.
It's always great to hear.
Yeah.
On that note too, with the with the ice storm and all that we did, thankfully, that that I know of, at least, because I asked about this earlier today. None of our people were significantly injured or anything like that, from falls or anything like that. We did have an injury from the fire this morning at Sunny's. So that was good. We had a couple of rigs that ended up slipping into ditches. One, an engine that the chain hooked the bumper on a vehicle, and yeah,
Oh.
so as they were passing it, they slipped close enough that the chain, that's really close.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
so yet to be determined whether or not it's our fault, though, because the vehicle was not parked in the proper location, kind of thing. I won't get into it, it's with insurance, but the only thing that I know of, and I don't know if it was you, but we had a medic crew that one medic rig here in Kenmore hit a very icy hill and slid into the ditch with a sick patient. And so they ended up actually using a Stokes on the warning system to get him down to the bottom of the hill, because it was just a complete sheet of ice, and gave it to medic 142. He had to transport. Outcome was okay from what I've been told and all that. So again, it could have been a lot worse for us. So it was, and everybody was chained up. It wasn't like there was any negligence or anything.
Right.
Overall, we did pretty well.
And how was the injury from this morning?
I don't know how long the firefighter will be off. It was a knee injury. It needed an evaluation. I would guess there's going to be some time loss.
Okay.
That's Sunny's up there on 15.
Yeah. It's on, and
Is it a
it's
total?
been real, very suspicious arson. And they're investigating it, and because of it is a total loss.
Oh, man. That's such a cool
And because of that, it's been kicked to the King County investigative unit. So came in at 5 o'clock this morning. It was a well-seated fire, and it extended from the outside up into the attic, ran the attic, and then, by the time the crews got there, they were by the time it got reported, because the crews had probably a 30-second or 40-second response. It was right around the corner.
Yeah.
They tried, but then they moved to the defensive. Unfortunately,
one of my favorite.
been there,
restaurants.
yeah,
Mhm.
been there for like 40 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any other commissioner info? Okay, Mr. Paxton, legal counsel report.
No legal counsel report for tonight.
Thank you. Anything about the upcoming board agenda that we need to add in here? We have a set future meetings agenda. And I believe that was cutting them down, if I'm correct, to 1 a quarter, or
1 a month.
One a month.
I thought we were gonna I thought we were already 1 month, no?
We went from 2 to 1.
Okay,
Yeah, in
And that has to stay because we have to approve vouchers. So
gotcha, okay,
So I guess one item, just be a continuation of policy 1450. I imagine we can get that done in a month. Seems
Yeah.
like that would be very difficult.
okay. So then, is there anything else needed? We want Amy to add? Okay, go ahead.
I had a note about February, an update from Chief and Taylor about the 153rd property.
We won't have an update in February for that. We will be starting the process of evaluation in February.
Okay.
I'm hoping that by April or May, to be able to come to the board with a recommendation, and then let the board decide on what to do, and whether to hold on to the property, sell it. If we keep it, then we'll probably put some money aside for it as well. So that'll be a little bit longer conversation probably. On that note, I am speaking with the Kenmore City Council on Monday to talk about one of the things that they wanted to ask about was the future of 54. And I spoke with the mayor and talked to him about our plans, and he was fine with it, but he wanted me to address the city council and see if there was any questions that they have as well. I will be at conference on the East Coast on Monday, Tuesday, coming back Wednesday. So it's all Zoom anyway, so I'll be doing it.
Then the other item was shoreline billing ILA.
Right, so I should be able to, hopefully by February, have a reconciliation, and all that for what was transpired.
And one that sort of was a few months ago, but sort of dropped off was policy 6200.
Is that the financial policy?
Yes.
Yeah, I have it on my list as well.
But not for February.
Maybe. We can put it on there and then, I can let you know. I'm waiting for Dawn and both and Katie to work on it.
Okay, so I have our next meeting on Tuesday, February 7th at 5.
Yep.
Any other last details we need to wrap up? Okay, meeting adjourned.
Yep.